How to use ChatGPT Study Mode for math.
I have a math degree, and I wish ChatGPT existed when I was in high school.
So I'm sharing 24 prompts you can copy to assist you in actually learning math and when to use them.
Because you see, most students memorize formulas without truly grasping what they mean. I was absolutely guilty of this. But this makes math very fragile, which then makes every new topic feel like you're starting over.
So we should build real understanding from inside out. And the first prompt framework you could use is analogies, to help you understand abstract math ideas by connecting them to familiar everyday experiences. I think what's great about this is you can blend your passions, interests into learning math, right? If you love sports, music, arts, coffee, anything, you can try out this prompt. The second prompt framework you could use is Feynman technique. This framework asks ChatGPT to explain the concept simply, or more importantly, have you explain it and get feedback. It's great because it forces active learning and reflection. The third prompt framework is using comparisons to clarify distinctions and relationships between concepts. It's amazing for long-term recall, knowing how ideas connect. The fourth prompt framework for math is the Pareto principle, to focus on the 20% of ideas that get 80% of understanding. Perfect for seeing the big picture first before diving into details. The next prompt framework is Socratic questioning. This is when you ask ChatGPT to lead you by asking questions that reveal misconceptions and forced reasoning. It's great because it forces you to think rather than memorize. For example, this one, where it's guiding you to see if you truly understand this specific concept. And the last prompt framework under this first goal is progression, to help you see the same idea at multiple levels. It's great because you can figure out what level you're currently at and how far you are to where you want to be.
Okay, so you build the concept foundation, but algebra still feels abstract because you can't see what these equations are actually doing. Now this makes it harder for the value to be absorbed.
So we could try to use ChatGPT to visualize these ideas. First prompt framework under this is graph visualization. It makes you see how changing the numbers affects the graph, which leads to math being less abstract. I think we all know that ChatGPT can make mistakes, so I highly advise to use it as more of a supplement, most specifically for this section. The next framework is pattern visualization, to connect patterns to algebraic rules. I think it's perfect for students who learn better with patterns rather than pictures. Next one is dual representation, to pair visuals and words. For example, like a graph with verbal reasoning, or maybe a formula with a story. And the last one here is concept mapping, to show how math ideas relate. It's great for seeing bird's eye view of the subject.
Okay, great. So you know the concepts, you can visualize them, but what about the stakes? I mean, this is the biggest complaint that students have about math. When will I ever use this, right? It's because knowing how relevant it is makes it stick to the memory better.
So we could ask ChatGPT's assistance in seeing how algebra is a language for how things work. First framework here is to use real-world context, to ground formula in more relatable scenarios. This is the main reason I wish ChatGPT existed when I was in high school, is to probe and spend so much time being curious about how this all applies to real world. The next one is story problem generation. This is to convert abstract problems into word problems you can solve. This one builds translation skills, from algebraic thinking to reasoning. The next one is interdisciplinary linking. This connects algebra to other fields, because chances are you're probably not majoring in math, which means you have other interests. Maybe you're a physics major, a business major, maybe you're in med school. Whatever it is, this is great for understanding how math ideas show up everywhere.
Awesome. So you know the concepts, you can visualize them, you know why they matter, but knowing how something works isn't enough. Without practice, you can freeze on tests.
So we could ask ChatGPT's help in turning knowledge into skill. The first framework here is Level Up, where you start simple and build difficulty step by step. What's great about this is you build momentum and confidence, so you solve problems that are not too easy and not too hard. The next one is error analysis, where after you make a guess on where you went wrong, you ask ChatGPT to identify where and why you went wrong, and hopefully learn from your mistakes. The next one is gamified practice, where you make repetition a little bit more fun. Add challenge, streaks, or levels to maintain focus, and you basically prompt ChatGPT to act like a game master or a quiz host. The next one is varied practice, where you mix topics so you don't over-specialize. It also forces recognition instead of recall because you learn to identify which method fits. And the last one here is reflection after practice, where you capture learning after problem solving. And it's great because you get to summarize all the mistakes that you're consistently making.
So you've done the work, solved the problems, gained the skills, but there's one final component. Students forget what they learn because they never revisit it intentionally. And without review, all those effort can go to waste.
Therefore, we could ask ChatGPT's help in making your learning stick long-term. The first prompt framework here is active recall. So instead of rereading notes, you test your memory. This one strengthens memory pathways because you're trying to retrieve the answer and it's not just through repetition. The next one here is quote-unquote flashcards, or at least ChatGPT's version of flashcards, which is another tool for active recall. The next one here is summarization, where ideally after you summarize the lesson yourself in your own words, you ask ChatGPT to summarize it as well, and then compare and contrast. The next framework is chunking, where again, ideally after you do this yourself, you ask ChatGPT to organize all these many small ideas into larger connected chunks. And this actually reduces cognitive load because instead of memorizing, let's say, 20 ideas, maybe you only have to memorize 4 because they all are grouped together. The next framework is spaced review, where you plan when to revisit topics for optimal retention. This is especially great if you're not using any other tool for spaced repetition. And the last framework is reflective review, where you combine recall with self-awareness. This is especially great because you get to see how you think and helps you refine eventually how you learn. I also make videos where I do real study and learning challenges using different AI tools, so subscribe if you're interested.